Welcome to the Library of Congress Book Festival. I'm Tara Parker Pope. I am a longtime health journalist. I've worked at the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, and this year I hit the trifecta of journalism and I joined the Washington Post. I'm helping to launch a new personal health section at the Post, and we're all very excited about it. It's a great newspaper and great people, and it was absolutely the right decision. I was anxious about the decision, but it turned out to be the right decision. So today we are here to talk about From Mind to Mindfulness, how to rethink anxiety. And we have two really amazing authors and women and human beings here to help us sort through all this. And what a time to be talking about anxiety. As you all, I'm sure, have experienced, these have been anxious times, and all indicators are that they will continue to be anxious times. Our first author is Dr. Ellen Vora. Her book is The Anatomy of Anxiety, Understanding and Overcoming the Body's Fear Response. It's the pink book. And our second author is Dr. Tracy Dennis Tewari. Her book is Future Tense, Why Anxiety is Good for You, Even Though It Feels Bad. And it has the winning pufferfish on the cover that I adore. I love this cover. So I'm gonna ask you guys to introduce yourselves, because I think you can do a better job than me. So Dr. Vora, do you wanna tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. So I am a psychiatrist. I call myself a holistic or functional medicine psychiatrist. I struggle with how to define it, but I take the whole person into consideration. I'm also an acupuncturist and a yoga teacher, so a weird psychiatrist in summary.
Hi, I'm Tracy Dennis Tewari, and I am a clinical psychologist by training, but after I got my degree, I went right into research. So I've studied emotions and anxiety for the better part of 20 years. And I have founded a research lab called the Emotion Regulation Lab at Hunter College in the City University of New York. I've also co-founded a digital therapeutics company where we translate some of the research I've been doing into games for mental health.
So I think there's so many good stories here and so much good conversation, but what a great audience. And I think to get us all in the right headspace, we want to just start off with a very brief breathing exercise led by Dr. Vora. So I hope you'll join.
Let's do it. So go ahead and come to a comfortable seated position and allow your eyes to close. And this is just to give you a little respite, a little break, and see if you can orient your attention inward to the internal landscape of your body and simply notice. And we're going to do something called the 4-7-8 breath together, and I'm going to lead you through it, but just to let you know what it will be, it's going to be inhaling to the count of 4, holding to the count of 7, and then exhaling to the count of 8. And most importantly, if my cues don't work for your body and it feels like it's straining, just cut loose, do your own thing. That's totally encouraged. So let's prepare with a cleansing breath, inhaling deeply through the nose. Exhale through the mouth with an audible sigh. And begin. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. At your own pace, inhaling to the count of 4. Holding to the count of 7. And slowly exhaling to the count of 8. And you're going to take yourself through one more round completely at your own pace. And whenever you get to the bottom of your last exhale, no rush if you're just like sloping down a really slow exhale right now. Just take a final moment to scan your body and notice. And see if you can give yourself a stance of compassion and patience and sweetness. And as you're ready, you can slowly allow your eyes to blink back open. And let's talk about anxiety.
Yes, let's talk about anxiety. So I'd like to hear from both of you why this book and why now. You know, both of these books talk to us about reframing and coming up with a new way to think about anxiety that is maybe not what we've learned or what we've thought. So tell me a little bit about, I'll start with Dr. Vora. Why did you think about writing this book? Why do we need this book?
I was a psychiatrist in practice and noticed a pattern, which was that everybody coming into my office was struggling with anxiety. And I have felt for a really long time that my training got me only so far. I felt like there was a lot of room for improvement in how we're thinking about anxiety, mental health writ large, and I've been approaching it differently in my practice and seeing good results, and I felt like it was time to spread this conversation beyond my patients, more one-to-many. And so it became obvious I had to write a book. The rest of that was much harder than the choice to write a book.
Right. I understand. How about you, Tracy?
So I know we're not on the mystery stage right now, but I actually did write the book to crack a personal mystery, which is that I devoted 20 years of my life to researching mental health and anxiety in particular. And after putting my head down for those 20 years, looking up about 5 or 6 years ago and really seeing that the mental health crisis was not getting better despite excellent treatments, excellent wellness, science-based wellness, medications for people who need it. If anything, anxiety disorders, especially among our youth, were on the rise. And so I had to ask myself, as part of this system that was failing everyone, what has gone wrong? And there are many answers to that question, but the one that I felt most suited to answer was that I believe there's a linchpin in this problem, which is our beliefs about anxiety, that are actually setting us up to do many more of the unhelpful things when it comes to anxiety and many fewer of the helpful things, so that we're unintentionally actually kind of accelerating in some ways a vicious cycle of anxiety that many of us are burdened by in our lives. And so I wrote the book to call out that vicious cycle and to suggest another way, and maybe to ask people to be curious about another way of thinking about anxiety that can spark a more virtuous cycle of anxiety, which I know is possible.
So give us some guidance about how you want us to think and what it means to reframe anxiety. What do you want us to let go of, and where do you want us to kind of shift our thinking? You want to start?
Let's do it. So we were taught, according to the Bible of mental health, that DSM, Diagnostic Statistical Manual, and it taught me to think about anxiety, whether it's generalized anxiety disorder, OCD, panic disorder, with or without agoraphobia, and always with any system of nomenclature. Part of it is to help standardize our research, and part of it is to steer management. And I realized that classification system was not steering management in a meaningful way for me at all. And so what I started to observe in my practice was, to make it pretty simple, I saw 2 types of anxiety. One is what I call false anxiety. I'll come back with a caveat about that really invalidating offensive term in just a second. And then the second part is what I would call true anxiety. So false anxiety is physical and it's avoidable. That is avoidable anxiety. It's not serving some greater purpose. It doesn't need to be happening. It's causing untold amounts of unnecessary suffering. True anxiety, on the other hand, is not something to pathologize. It's not something to suppress. It's not what's wrong with us. In many ways, it's what's right with us when we are able to viscerally connect with what is not right in our personal lives, in our communities, in the world at large. And while false anxiety is something I like to chip away at, I like to be Mr. Fix-It and eliminate as much of that as possible, true anxiety is something we need to practice slowing down and listening to and honoring. And there's usually a call to action baked into it. And when we can translate that anxious feeling into purposeful action, we don't feel so mired in that feeling of anxiety anymore. We feel imbued with purpose. So the caveat about the term false, I don't know. I look back and sometimes think I shouldn't have used that term. But the idea is not to invalidate the very real suffering. False anxiety is as much suffering as true anxiety. I was in a state of false depression for years, and that was life-altering suffering. It really, that false is just to speak to the fact that there's a straightforward physical basis and a straightforward path out.
Right. And I love that distinction, Ellen, of true and false anxiety, because, and I think my book is really focusing on true anxiety.
Yeah.
And as an emotion scientist, as well as a clinical psychologist, really re-examining what we know about anxiety, because anxiety is not the same as an anxiety disorder, but we have come in our minds to immediately equate it with a dysfunction. So when we feel anxiety, we think it means that something's wrong with ourselves, with the world, in the sense that it's a dysfunction. We have to fix it, we have to suppress it immediately. But emotions we evolved to have because they give us information and because they give us activation and purpose, as Ellen was referring to. So really with the mindset shift I'm talking about is to, by accepting anxiety as actually a normal, healthy part of being human, that actually we are all born anxious. And the job, the messy work of being human really, is to learn to be anxious in the right way. If we accept that, or consider it at least, if we don't accept it, if we accept that as a starting point, then all of a sudden we're set up to do very different things when it comes to experiencing anxiety. I think it will help us both manage and work with anxiety better, to know when there is false anxiety and to get to the origins. But more importantly, and this is really a passion as a writer for this book, is to share some science and thoughts about why anxiety isn't just protective. It doesn't just tell us what's going wrong. It actually tells us what we care about in the world, what we hope for, what's possible. And it's a wave in our lives. It energizes and activates, and we can drown in that wave, but we can also learn to swim, and we can learn to surf, and we can learn to sail it. And when it is too overwhelming, we can reach out and seek support and have tools both that are professional but also personal. And so I think that was really my motivation for writing the book. I think Ellen and I share that profound motivation. And I would recommend you read both of our books together. Maybe mine first, only because, but get to hers quick, only because it sets the stage for this essential mindset shift where we can befriend anxiety again, and then the amazing, amazing tools that Ellen lays out for everyone.
I hear this conversation, and we've been talking a lot lately, and I still find it challenging for me personally. Anxiety is so real, and the suffering of anxiety is real. And some people have tremendous anxious experiences living in this world that isn't always friendly to them. So I'm trying to understand more about, okay, so you want us to think about anxiety in a new way, but then what is the next step? Like, how do we distinguish between being able to help ourselves and needing to seek professional help? You know, to me, it's a little bit of a challenge to get away from this old idea that anxiety is something you seek help for.
Could I start just with a quick distinction and then hand it over?
Sure.
Because I think that it's really important to understand why anxiety is not the same as fear. So we're all born anxious. Everyone has anxiety. It's not going anywhere. And it's not fear, because fear is certain. It's certainty that right now in the present moment there is a danger or a threat. So it is, it is a dog about to bite you. Sorry if anyone has a dog fear, and I love dogs. That was a terrible example, but so it's you're in present danger. Anxiety has nothing to do with the present. It makes us into mental time travelers into the future, where something bad could happen, but something good could also happen. The bad has not happened yet, and it primes us and activates us to ensure that that good thing happens. So this is an emotion we cannot live without. An anxiety disorder is only diagnosed when the ways that you're coping with this painful, difficult feeling that has to be painful to make you sit up and pay attention. It's telling you you care and you're in it to win it. It's a disorder when the ways you're coping with that difficult, painful emotion are getting in the way. It's called functional impairment. And I'll hand it over to you. Sorry to jump in there, but
No, it's cool.
to set the stage.
So when I think about that distinction, what we've all come of age with, the story about mental health, is to think about it as from the neck up, and it's a genetic chemical imbalance. And what we say is on the menu of ways to support you is medication and therapy. And the medical, legal, cautious thing that I could say right now would be, of course, you should seek professional help. And if we had a very different set of circumstances in this country, that could be a useful message. But I think if anyone has ever tried the process of trying to get access to good mental health care, I won't ask for a show of hands, it's sensitive material, but basically it can be completely defeating. It's behind a paywall, it's very hard to find someone who's taking new patients, who works with your insurance. Even once you do finally jump through every hoop, not to mention the hoop of accepting that we need help and picking up the phone in the first place, and the fact that it has to be a phone call, which why can't I just email? And then you get to a point where maybe there isn't even good chemistry, and you're like, I don't feel better after these sessions. So it's really tough. And then our medications, we'll talk more about the nuance of that, but for some people, they're incredibly helpful, and for other people, not so much. So we've really let a lot of the population hung out to dry. And so I have felt it's really important to expand the menu of options of how we can support our mental health care or our mental health. And I think what's helpful about that is that when you expand to what really does support us, what really can help, and it's things like improving the quality of our sleep and being less inflamed and a healthy digestive tract, and even these fundamental human needs like our need for community and to be of service and to find meaning and purpose in our lives. These things are actually largely free. They are safe. They're not invasive interventions that come with risks. They are very safe diet and lifestyle modifications that actually come with side benefits. And so I find this to be really empowering and hopeful. That's not always how we swallow it. When someone's like, you're struggling with anxiety, just go take a walk, and maybe you need to go to bed earlier. We don't like hearing that message for so many reasons. And part of it is that it feels incredibly invalidating of the fact that we're struggling in a way that we're like, no, this is realer than that. That's not going to do anything. But I think that if we can at least take away the piece of it that is empowering and is hopeful, there's a lot that we can do for ourselves. It's safe, it's inexpensive, it's accessible. We can start today, and we can feel at least a bit better.
And I think the crucial thing about that is it breaks out of this dichotomy, this extreme binary we've been placed in, that it's either a disease you have to eradicate or pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. And what I think is at the heart of both of our books, and where I hope that this field is going, is to be, it's a messy middle, right? It's nuanced, but it's saying there are tools and skills, and there is a right way to be anxious. There are skills you can build, even if you fail sometimes or it feels like you're failing. We can actually do these things independently, and it actually is a part of the human condition. It's a feature of being human, not a bug, a malfunction, or something you have to sweep under the rug. So that's why I think that approach is also so important.
I want to talk more about the skills, but I have a quick question first. I mean, I imagine that there's a lot of people in the audience who have sought help. They might have been prescribed a medication. Can you talk a little more about the role of medication in helping people with anxiety, and when it works, maybe when it's not appropriate? If I have a prescription, should I be rethinking that? Should I stop taking it? Should I talk to my? What should we, if we're on this journey with you and we're rethinking anxiety, what about medication? What role does it play?
All right, I'll kick this one off. We need a nuanced conversation about psychiatric medication. And this is a sensitive topic, and I will presume that some significant percentage of the people in the room have taken it at some point in their life, are taking it right now. So sometimes I call myself a holistic psychiatrist, and that can read like as if I'm dogmatically standing in opposition to pharmaceutical interventions. So I just want to get it very clear, that's not the case. I'm a psychiatrist, I prescribe medication. And I think we are in a crisis right now where we have a lack of informed consent, partly because of our medical system. So are you getting started on a medication after a 45-minute conversation several times over the course of a few weeks with a psychiatrist? Or did you go into your primary care doctor's office, talk to them for 8 minutes, kind of started to get tearful, and then they're like, make it go away, and gave you a prescription for Lexapro or Xanax? And so who's to blame here, right? it's actually not the patient, it's actually not even that practitioner, it's a bigger, more systemic problem. We need more informed consent about what the real efficacy is, what the real risks are, potential adverse effects, potential for physiologic dependence. When I'm thinking about meds, if someone is helped by meds, if you're in this room right now and you take something and it's helpful, this is great. Everything I'm about to say is not in any way intended to make you second guess that. Don't look back. I am in the business of relieving human suffering, and if a med is relieving your human suffering, hallelujah, stick with it. For anybody else, and now it's like you're helped by your meds, earmuffs. I'm going to talk to the other folks for a second. If you are on something and it was helpful at the beginning but the effect waned, or if you feel like you are on something but you actually experience a pretty significant burden of side effects, or if you feel like you've been completely chewed up and spit out by the field of mental health and you've tried everything under the sun and nothing has brought you relief, and you're starting to feel demoralized, like nothing's going to help, I'm talking to you right now, which I'm just here to say, do not despair. Medication is not the only path up this mountain of how we feel better. And if it is the right path for you, that's great. And if it hasn't proved to be the right path for you, I apologize on behalf of the field of psychiatry that we haven't really offered you alternatives. And I'm here to say there's 1,000 other things we can do to support our mental health. And for one person, that might be the silver bullet. But for many other potential root causes of depression and anxiety, it's actually not even the right approach. And so we just need to be having a conversation about all the other things that we can do to support ourselves. And we didn't even talk about benzos, but I think, Tracy, you can
No,
fill
you
that
have an
in.
opinion about that.
Well, so this is how you know I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm a psychologist. And I'm much less comfortable with medication like benzodiazepines, which are highly dangerous medications that have been overprescribed in this country, and it has had a huge toll on our communities and every type of community. And I think it's radically irresponsible the way they've been overprescribed, and I think people have not been educated. And even if you are on a benzodiazepine and it's helping you, and I'm with Ellen on this, it's like, yes, relief suffering, and you're not experiencing side effects yet, you should still be cautious, because we know that these drugs change our brains over time, and psychiatry doesn't really even know how and over what period of time. And so we should be as cautious as possible and use them to bring ourselves to a baseline where we can then also benefit from other therapeutic approaches. So really the data show that in combination with behavioral and cognitive therapies, this is where the use of medication with great supervision and awareness is sometimes at its, is at its most effective for 95% of people. And maybe I'm overstating that percentage. So I take a little bit of a different stance on it. But I think we as a mental health profession need to do a better job, whatever the case, of really helping people understand when and how and when not to use benzodiazepines. But there are other anti-anxiety meds as well.
I just want to jump in because I do think that we have to remember the impact that our words can have, and that if you are taking a prescription drug, don't stop taking it.
Oh no, and I would never suggest that.
I mean, talk to your physician, but it's a conversation you can have. I do think there's consequences to non-compliance with your prescription and stopping it abruptly. So just, right, doctor?
Oh, I mean, I call that the silent epidemic. I think
Yeah.
that what we don't appreciate yet is that these medications actually do have a withdrawal. So there are consequences to non-compliance, and I think you're exactly right. Like, we're so suggestible, and this is touchy stuff to reconsider medication, and you don't want to do anything abruptly with these meds.
Right, and we're not dispensing personal medical advice here, so
Very
just be
true.
smart. I do think that we're going to start taking questions soon, so you can see the mics right here, so you guys can think of your questions and come up. I do think we should talk a little bit about skills and what skills we can develop, especially if we don't feel like we have anxiety that's reaching, maybe we can't find a therapist, or maybe don't think we quite need one yet, but we would still like help, and we're still suffering with anxiety. Can you talk a little bit more about what kind of things we can do for ourselves?
I'll be happy to start. So I mentioned before the vicious cycle of anxiety, and you can think about it as sort of the 3 Fs. So we feel anxiety is dangerous. So as soon as we feel anxiety, we assume it's a danger signal or that there's a dysfunction, or maybe we're heading down the course of disease. And so as a result, we fear these signals of anxiety and we flee from it. The problem with these 3 Fs is it always makes anxiety worse. It's literally a recipe for amplifying anxiety, and it's an opportunity cost in terms of building some of those skills. So when we think about building skills, the first thing we have to do is what I call the 3 Ls. I'm sorry, there's so many mnemonics here, so the 3 Fs, vicious cycle. The 3 Ls are this virtuous cycle that I talk about that don't just soothe anxiety, but actually help us leverage it for purpose in our life. So the very first step, and Ellen, I think you and I are lockstep on this, is to listen. We have to listen to anxiety as information and preparation. Why? Anxiety tells us there's something around the bend. Maybe there's a big speaking engagement you have the next day and on a stage in front of an audience of wonderful people, and you're feeling the anxiety. Well, if I swept that anxiety under the rug, it might actually not let me know 2 things. 1 is that I really care about this, and 2, that maybe I have a little more preparation to do. Maybe I want to talk with Ellen a little more and get some ideas going. So that information also leads to preparation and imagining and planning and preparing. And then the second L is to leverage that information and preparation and put it into action. And often when we do, our anxiety naturally goes down and we can see, okay, I was on the right track. And so anxiety is that information when it rises and when it falls. And then after we leverage it, and sometimes we can't, and sometimes it's so noisy we can't even listen to it, the third step is to let go and to build those kinds of skills, some of which we already have, to really let go of this future way of thinking when we're projecting ourselves and worrying, to let go and be in the present. And whether that's exercise for you, talking to a psychologist, people, purpose, people meaning connect with loved ones. It is one of the best ways to work through anxiety and enrich your life. Finding a sense of purpose, meaning what am I going to do with these feelings? Can I hitch these feelings to some greater goal or purpose I have? Or maybe I just want to write bad poetry, which is what I like to do when I'm letting go of anxiety. It just helps me think in a different way. So using that framework can help you pop in some of these skills that you already have and build those skills in practice.
So let's talk some specifics, so
Yep.
what you might recommend.
Yeah, so that kind of addresses true anxiety, purposeful anxiety, so I left it to Tracy. I don't have to even go in there. False anxiety, let's eliminate unnecessary suffering. An easy one, low-hanging fruit, is keeping our blood sugar stable. So if anybody here identifies with the experience of getting hangry, like angry when you're hungry, or you love someone who does, basically when we're all on this blood sugar roller coaster because the modern American diet is built on a foundation of refined carbohydrates and coffee drinks that are secretly milkshakes and rosé all day. And so our blood sugar is often, it's spiking, insulin chases it, and then it's crashing. The design of the human body is that we respond to a blood sugar crash by secreting our stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol. And that gets the job done. It cues the liver to break down the storage of starch that it keeps. It gives us a sense of urgency to go forage for food at 3 in the afternoon every day. And it also creates a 5-alarm fire stress response in the body. And that can feel synonymous with anxiety and panic. So if you are in and out of a blood sugar crash all the time, you might be having a lot of unnecessary anxiety. And the solution is to keep your blood sugar stable. That could come down to overhauling your diet, eating more fat and protein and less refined carbohydrates and sugar and alcohol, and that's a hard conversation and it's really hard to do. So short of that, if that makes your eyes roll to the back of your head and you're like, that's not gonna happen, I have nachos for dinner, then what you can do today is use something like almond butter or coconut oil or just a handful of nuts and take a spoonful, have a handful, just do that a couple times a day. What seems to work best for my patients is to do that in anticipation of their typical blood sugar crashes. So if you know you're foraging for cookies at 3 in the afternoon, or you know you're picking a fight with your partner every day at 5 p.m. like clockwork, or you wake up throughout the middle of the night, maybe you take a spoonful an hour before those times, and it just gives you a safety net of stable blood sugar, and that'll blunt a superimposed crash. Nobody likes the conversation around caffeine or alcohol, so I won't mention those two things. And then keeping your gut healthy, which is its own longer conversation, but generally trying to avoid the things that are irritating our guts, adding in what soothes the gut, creating the conditions for the gut to heal, which is a longer conversation, but if you do nothing else, just get a squatty potty. Just get a squatty potty. If you've never heard of it, have fun Googling that. And then everything to do with sleep is another really impactful correction to false anxiety. And in modern days, a lot of us think we're doing the right things to set ourselves up for good sleep. We're putting all this effort in, and yet sleep still eludes us. And this has everything to do with light. The modern environment is disrupting our circadian rhythm simply because we're not outside seeing sunshine during the day, and far more importantly, we are surrounded by a psychedelic light show of overhead lighting and the TV and the laptop and the phone after sunset, and our circadian rhythm is cued by light. And the poor thing is just scanning the landscape, trying to understand what time of day it is based on light cues, and it watches us scroll TikTok in bed at 11:45 p.m., and it thinks the organism sure seems tired, but the sun is rising. I can't argue with that. And so we suppress our melatonin, we secrete cortisol, and then we get that second wind. We feel tired but wired, we can't fall asleep. So you want to work to fixing your light cues. If there are just two things that are most impactful there, it's taking a circadian walk as early in the morning as you can, get actual sunshine into your actual eyeballs, not through sunglasses, not through blue blocking lenses. And then in the evening, put on a pair of blue blocking glasses around sunset, wear them till bedtime. And I know that that feels like kind of effortful, but just pilot this, and you can get these for less than $10. They look really goofy. You look like you're trying to do metallurgy or something, but it will protect your melatonin release. You'll be able to get sleepy and sleep well.
I love this advice about the morning circadian walk. Can you tell us, like, what's happening to, so you're saying that before I start my day, I should make a morning walk a priority?
So what it does is it starts the clock. This is all about the suprachiasmatic nuclei in the brain. That's a fun bit of trivia, and basically it's scanning the landscape. It's trying to understand. It's our internal clock based on light. And it sees that light first thing in the morning and says, I understand, this is the morning. And then it ticks in the background all day, helping us feel awake during the day, and then helping us get tired at night. And it is an interesting quality for anyone who's been working from home through the pandemic and beyond. There's convenience to that, there are issues with that, but we have lost our daily commute. No one really loves commuting, but we were getting at least a dose of sunshine.
Sure. Well, that's a great tip. I suspect you might read about it in a future newsletter written by me. I really like it. I think it's really helpful. I really hope you guys will be not shy and come ask questions. I wanted to share with you a funny story that you shared with me. I was asking you, what do you do at an emotion regulation lab? And you told me kind of a horrible story about children.
Right. Evil scientist stuff. So to study emotion regulation, which is the monitoring and modulation, how we change our emotions, how we turn them up, turn them down, you have to invoke emotions in people to study them. And I started a lot of my early research researching preschooler emotion regulation. So if any of you have preschoolers or have been around them, it's a hot time for emotion. So what would we do to make them emotional? Well, there was one particularly evil kind of task we did, which is we would hand the child, we called it the disappointment task. We'd hand them a beautifully wrapped gift, and then we'd leave the room, the cameras were rolling, and they'd open the gift, and it would be empty. Oh, I know. But here's an even worse one. And then we would observe, well, how did they cope with it? What were their emotion expressions? We're so interested in this. The other task is more relevant, I think, to anxiety, perhaps. It's called the perfect circles task. You, again, bring a little innocent, gorgeous 3 or 4-year-old into the lab, and you hand them a piece of paper and a green crayon, and you say, can you draw me a perfect green circle? Any preschooler knows exactly how to do this. That one's a little squished on that side. Draw another one. Ooh, that one's a little pointy. Draw another one for 3.5 minutes. It is the longest 3.5 minutes, as much for the experimenter as for the child. But what we could observe with that task was persistence and the kinds of emotions. Is this a child who expresses anger and frustration? Despair? Oh, those are the hardest. or maybe a little anxiety about performance. This was a way to give us a window into children's emotional lives.
I just thought that was sort of a fascinating bit into the science, and for me, it would have induced anxiety in me, the
Yeah.
researcher, so it would have been effective, I guess, the experiment.
Yeah.
We've got about 10 minutes, so let's do kind of a speed round of questions here. Let's start with you.
Hi, thank you so much. So my name is Reed. I'm a psychiatrist actually in Boston, and I'm focusing on women's mental health. I really am interested in the postpartum period, as it is a time of transition for so many. Do you have any tips, particularly for like new moms or people who are pregnant, expecting?
I'll let you start with that one.
So many.
1 minute. Give us 1 minute worth of tips.
1 minute. Lightning round. I think it's a time of a lot of false and a lot of true anxiety. The true anxiety are we don't have state-sponsored childcare, we don't have parental leave policies. Like there's very real true anxiety in that, and the role transition is just tough. So we need to move through that, process it, all of that. I'm sort of interested in the false anxiety at the time. It's an enormous hormonal crash. That's inevitable. But importantly, and this is the part I think we're not talking enough about yet, it's a time of immense depletion because you just grew a baby, birthed a baby, sometimes with a lot of blood loss, and then you might even potentially be feeding a baby, not to mention sleep deprivation. So in the best of circumstances, we're working with a big nutritional deficit that we need to rebuild. And I think a lot of postpartum anxiety and depression can be supported, not entirely eliminated, but improved with nutritional repletion. And the tricky thing is that you have a newborn, so you're not the one who has the time or the energy to be preparing nutrient-dense, diverse, every color of the rainbow meals. So we need a system for accepting help and for affordably and conveniently somehow having someone hand us nutrient-dense food. And it's tough. I mean, I patched together community and mother-in-law and whoever could help feed me in those days. And I think that's how we can support moms. There's a lot more to be said about that, but I think that's one of the bigger,
I think there's a
more impactful
chapter.
changes.
Is there something in your book about it?
About what?
About menopause, or is it your book? One of you talks about menopause.
Yeah.
You definitely
Your book
have
does.
wonderful women's
Okay, we need to
health
move on,
advice.
but I
Yeah.
read the book.
Read book.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi. Well, excellent points. You've addressed ways to take control of anxiety at the individual level. I wanted to ask you about the social determinants of health. I've been doing some work in Arizona looking at behavioral health problems, suicide, depression, anxiety, multiple mental health issues there. And these are caused by things like lack of transportation, education access, lack of the proper access to food and nutrition, et cetera. These are external factors and determinants that drive people's, context, if you will. What insights do you have about how to begin to manage the contextual elements that are involved in mental health and wellness and anxiety
All right.
reduction?
You want to take that?
I think
Let's go like
I'm
30
go on this.
seconds.
30 seconds is, I think we have to deal with the contextual factors. This has to be addressed. That's not a mental health problem. But when it comes to mental health in this, is that if this is the reality we're facing, as we acknowledge it needs to be changed, what do we do with ourselves? What do we do with our understandable feelings? We can't sweep anxiety under the rug. And not only do we need to manage it, we need to leverage it for the sense of injustice. It is an energizing emotion. It is a wave. And on the other side of anxiety, it's not just threat, it's hope. The flip side of anxiety is hope, because you know that bad thing is looming, but you still have the power to work for what's right. And so I'd say when we shift the narrative about anxiety, we will be more empowered to deal with the realities that should be changed and need to be changed.
Life is hard. This is a hard planet to live on, but we love it. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, sir, for that question.
Hi, my question was, Dr. Dennis Tewari, you mentioned the distinction between anxiety and anxiety disorders.
Yes.
Would either of you say that an anxiety disorder is a completely separate thing from anxiety, or is it the end result of not dealing with anxiety or false anxiety? Or is it just a completely separate phenomenon?
Yeah, it's so confusing. And I'll just say really briefly, starting with the point, all of us are born anxious, so we do need to understand that anxiety is a human emotion. Anxiety disorders are a diagnostic label that help us understand, study, and treat these challenges of being human. When an anxiety disorder is diagnosed, it's literally a checklist. I mean, this is where the disease model, the medical model, has been plopped on top of mental health. I think sometimes to its detriment as well as sometimes to help. And so you check off these, are you avoiding situations that are anxiety provoking? Are you seeing functional impairment? Are you having these physiological signs? And the key though is that there has to be functional impairment. The way that you're coping and experiencing anxiety has to be disrupting the way you work and love and play. And when it is, that's when it's diagnosed as an anxiety disorder. So I see the crisis of anxiety disorders, yes, it can be about anxiety, but it's even more so the way that we're coping and being helped to cope with anxiety. That's really the crisis we're facing now.
Okay, we have 5 minutes and we have 6 questions. Let's try. Go.
Okay, so as somebody with a generalized anxiety disorder, one of the things that I have found to be really paralyzing is it's not just the anxiety, but also I deal with a lot of shame too, and I don't think I'm the only one who does. So just briefly, what do we do with shame?
Dr. Vora,
Seconds.
want to try that?
Do you want to take that one?
Why don't you start? And I mean, maybe because that's really hard.
I'll do 30 seconds.
I do want to get to the other questions, so let's try.
You read your Brene Brown, and I really think that I believe that talking about what we're ashamed of is garlic to the shame vampire, or like we sanitize it with light, and so you need to talk about it with someone who really has proved that they're worthy of holding space for that conversation with you. But it's a mistake, right? Shame is just always inaccurate. And we are never as bad as the worst thing that we've done. And we are out here, flawed humans like everybody else, trying to do our best. And if we hold this heaviness of, but I am bad, we've got it wrong. We're out here trying to do our best. It's all like any of us can do.
And the 10-second addition with GAD in particular is that there's all this meta anxiety, meta worry, and sometimes shame can stem from that. But when we're anxious, we are not broken. We are simply not, and I don't know if that helps to say
And I think this idea that shame is inaccurate, that it is wrong, is really a powerful idea. Thank you for your question. Go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, if you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you start thinking about the next day or worrying about things, is it best to let that play out until you go back to sleep, or should you be trying to block it out, count sheep?
Oh, Ellen, can I take this? Because I love that. This is my favorite example because I was up the other day at 4 a.m. with my worries. So, and it's a great example of how we can actually ride the wave of anxiety. We need to listen. And often when we listen to those 4 a.m. worries, I can tell you from my own experience, what will rise to the top will be what we really need to focus on. I had a fight with my daughter who's 10, and we're starting to butt heads now. At 4 a.m., I was like, something was messy, I was feeling bad, and right to the surface, I was thinking about that conversation. I made a plan because it's information and preparation to talk to her the next day. I said I'm going to say 2 or 3 things. I planned it out. My anxiety went down. I actually got another hour of sleep. I got up in the morning, and it actually transformed how I'd gotten into this bad path, this bad cycle with my daughter, and it's because I listened to that 4 a.m. worry. So that would be my personal advice.
Real quick.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring the false anxiety part to that. So I think that middle insomnia, waking up in the middle of the night, can also relate to alcohol. When our body is reclaiming homeostasis after alcohol, we're converting GABA, a soothing neurotransmitter, to glutamate, an excitatory one. It leaves us tossing and turning. Getting overtired, not getting to bed at that sweet spot when we're perfectly tired, our body releases cortisol. Blood sugar crashes, as we discussed earlier. And the last thing is just to appreciate middle sleep, which is a badly named concept, but basically we have 2 more or less symmetric blocks of sleep. There's an inevitable wake up in the middle. Maybe we have to use the restroom or have a sip of water. And if we just recognize this is normal physiologic and not let our eyes see light, we can generally close our eyes and trust that we're going to fall back asleep. But when we start with the narrative of, oh no, I'm up in the middle of the night, oh no, that gins up our stress response and makes it harder to fall back asleep.
I love that, and that's why you need to read both of our books. Sorry, that was very self-promotional.
So we have 1 minute. I'm going to make a suggestion. I'm going to take your question. If we don't get your question, you can send me an email at tpp@washpost.com, and I will make sure that your question gets answered if you want to email me directly. What's your question real fast?
what 1 minute creates a lot of anxiety, but I'll do my best. You covered the physical aspects, emotional aspects, social determinants. Wondered if you could say something that's maybe pertinent to your book around the spiritual or religious aspects in dealing with anxiety. Churchgoers may be very familiar with rituals that help. I think Viktor Frankl maybe, or Jung, has a lot to say about the spiritual aspects, but I want to bring it back to your book and understand
All right.
what message it
You
has.
guys want to quickly wrap
So
up?
much, and I think, Ellen, you spent more time in your book talking about that. I think that anxiety can actually send us to the sense of purpose. And there's so much in spiritual practice about putting yourself in the hand of whatever that higher power is to live with and learn from that anxiety. So there's so much to say about that, but you might want to add to that.
And I'll agree with you that rushing this topic is anxiety generating, but basically I think that we are culturally on a little bit of a rebound from dominance of organized religion, and in certain ways we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. We're now lacking those rituals, the community that it brings, and the explanations, which are the gray area and the uncertainties of this vulnerable human experience. I think I was doing a disservice to my patients for the longest time by not addressing spirituality, and now I go right there. We have that conversation, and I don't have a horse in the game. I don't care where someone arrives. I just want them to be seeking and asking the questions and figuring out what feels true for them. When we think that this is purely a material reality, that makes the worst case scenarios in the end feel pretty absolute, and that's scary. And when we open up to the possibility that perhaps something vastly beyond our comprehension is occurring here, it softens the edges a bit and just keeps us cultivating meaning from the unfolding events of our lives, which helps with resilience. Thanks.
I'm sorry to say we need to wrap up. There's many other wonderful events today, and I feel terrible that you're standing there with your question. Is it really fast?
It is. It's related to the other sleep one. I know you didn't want to talk about caffeine and alcohol, but if you could just say a little more than what you did before.
Really? I don't know if you can do this quickly.
I did so quickly. There's bioindividuality with caffeine. I'm just going to talk at 1.5x speed. So with caffeine, bioindividuality. One person can have an espresso after dinner, fall asleep later, no problem. Must be nice to be you. Some of us are sensitive to caffeine. I had a coffee last month, and I'm still kind of like, I'm on cocaine, right? So if you are sensitive to it, just be honest with yourself about that. Push it a little earlier in the day. Perhaps splice in some decaf, have a half calf instead. Keep the ritual, keep the smell and the joy of it, but just reduce the overall milligrammage of caffeine and do that gradually, because it's a real substance with a real withdrawal. Alcohol, it's the healthiest amount of alcohol to consume is 0, and where it pertains to anxiety is that what it does is it rushes our brain with GABA, which is relaxing. And if the story ended there, I'd say alcohol is a great treatment for anxiety. But our brain doesn't care whether or not we're relaxed. It's interested in our survival. So it sees all that GABA. It thinks, what if a leopard were to come around the corner? We'd be too buzzed to care, and we could be in danger. So it says, let's reclaim homeostasis. We'll convert that GABA to glutamate, which is excitatory. And in the case of benzos, which are kind of cousins with alcohol, we actually start to pull our GABA receptors. So then you can have normal levels of GABA, but you're not hearing it. And so you feel anxious at baseline. And so basically these things cumulatively over time make it harder to just feel calm with our own naked physiology. And I know that that's no fun.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Dr. Wara, Dr. Dennis Tewari. The signing of the books is at 12:30, so if you had a question, maybe you can sneak it in at the book signing. I really am sincere. Please, tpp@washpost.com if you have more questions about anxiety, and I'll make sure you get an answer. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.